Get ready for an explosive journey. In November 2023, Grindavik, a small Icelandic fishing village of only 600 people, was shaken to its core by a massive earthquake that ripped open massive cracks in the earth. But this wasn't just any ordinary quake. It was the trigger that set off a chain reaction leading to an enormous volcanic eruption. This fire-spewing spectacle shot lava high into the sky, reaching heights of 300 feet. And if you think that's mind-blowing, it's not Grindavik's first rodeo. This area has seen 2 more eruptions since 2021, after lying eerily still for centuries. Buckle up as we dive into Iceland's seismic crisis and uncover how the cracks in Grindavik were just the warning signs of a disaster waiting to erupt. Get ready for an earth-shaking story. The normally calm surroundings took a drastic turn on October 24, 2023, as a series of massive earthquakes began to rock the area. Within just 1 week, the Iceland Meteorological Office tracked an astonishing 8,000 tremors, mostly rumbling about 2 miles beneath the surface. As scientists zeroed in on the epicenter, they uncovered a shocking truth. The dormant Eldvarp Svartsengi volcanic system, quietly resting for centuries, was starting to show signs of life again after its reawakening in 2020. Fast forward 3 years, and you've got a volcanic eruption showstopper, one out of many in Iceland at that time. But let's rewind and see what sparked this natural fireworks display. By November 10th, scientists at the IMO had clocked an epic quake measuring 5.3 on the Richter scale. Talk about a wake-up call. And to put things into perspective, they'd already recorded a staggering 22,000 earthquakes leading up to that moment. The ground was literally shaking, and it seemed like Mother Nature was ready to unleash her full fury. Would Iceland be next? Imagine Grindavik as a tiny village sitting on top of an ancient volcano. Literally. The lava field that formed 350 years ago by Sundnukur's eruptions is where this coastal town calls home. Every aspect, from its harbor to its very location, was molded by the intense volcanic activity. Now, it seemed like Sundnukur was about to turn against itself, unleashing its fury on what it created. As magma slowly seeped into the dikes beneath, the ground began to tremble, sending shockwaves across the surface of Grindavik's crater, a terrifying sign that this volcanic field was far from dormant. Get ready for some serious geothermal drama. The intense heat from these massive earthquakes caused steam to burst out, giving us a sneak peek at the extreme pressure cooker conditions building beneath Grindavik. In response, authorities sounded the alarm, ordering an emergency evacuation of the entire town and leaving everyone on edge. Meanwhile, just miles away in Svartsengi, the ground was behaving like it was doing some crazy yoga. Up and down motion as more pressure built up. 4 days after that devastating earthquake, scientists detected sulfur dioxide in the air with their super-cool equipment at IMO. This was a major warning sign magma was on its way to the surface, and experts predicted an eruption could happen any moment. But the world held its breath, and for a moment, it looked like disaster had been dodged. Scientists said almost 9 out of 10 magma bubbles were stuck in time, frozen solid by the icy Earth's grip. Seismic shockwaves started to fade away, giving everyone a temporary sigh of relief. The Blue Lagoon geothermal spa even reopened its doors on December 17th, just 3 miles from Grindavik, thinking they'd seen the worst. Little did they know what was still to come. Buckle up, folks. Just a day away from this explosive update, Sundnukur's situation was looking dire, literally. Magma was still raging beneath its surface, and all it needed was a teensy bit more oomph to create a volcanic eruption for the ages. Fast forward to December, GPS data revealed that Sundnukur had actually risen from the ground it once occupied. This uplift was directly linked to magma accumulation, and we later discovered that the 5.3 magnitude earthquake on November 10th was the culprit behind this molten rock shift. The quakes had pushed the molten lava into shallower, less stable reservoir, a recipe for disaster. Get ready for an eruption showdown. At Svartsengi, things started to heat up beneath those dikes just like they did in Grindavik. But this time, the ground had a chance to chill out and cool down the pressure, maybe preventing another blast. Unfortunately for Iceland, it wasn't meant to be their second lucky break. As the clock ticked on, the local power station got evacuated. But don't worry, those geothermal wizards at the Reykjans station didn't let that stop them. They worked their magic remotely, keeping the energy flowing without a hitch. Let's get real for a second. Having hot water might not sound like a big deal, but trust us, it's essential when you're stuck in a temporary shelter with no end in sight. Imagine being surrounded by empty buildings and then having to return home with no way to maintain basic hygiene or even wash your hands properly. It was a band-aid solution at best. Now here's the kicker. This makeshift power station was basically a ticking time bomb sitting right next to a potential volcanic eruption zone. Imagine a massive lava field barreling its way towards Iceland's population. That's over 7% of residents left without power in one of the coldest spots near the Arctic Circle. The harsh reality is electric heating is what keeps tens of thousands of people alive, and losing it would be catastrophic. To prepare for an eruption, authorities took bold action by setting up barriers around Grindavik and other key areas. But let's get real, these safety measures are just a band-aid. They can't fully stop the fury of molten lava. So, if Iceland wants to stay safe, it needs an eruption miracle, an unlikely event that would keep the area out of harm's way. Get ready for a natural showstopper. The magma below the surface had reached its breaking point and was about to blow its top. A massive crack began to form in Sundnukur, splitting over 2 miles of earth wide open. Imagine a giant zipper tearing down the ground. This deep fissure was now just a few dozen feet away from erupting with molten lava. All that pressure had been waiting for the perfect weak spot, and it found it in Hagafell Mountain. As the clock struck 117 p.m. on December 18th, disaster struck nearly 2 months after a series of intense earthquakes alerted scientists at the IMO. This was the moment everyone had been dreading. The long-awaited eruption finally began at Hagafell. Imagine a scene where superheated lava bursts from the Earth's surface, shooting molten rock hundreds of feet into the air like colossal fire hoses. These fiery columns reached an astonishing 300 feet high before crashing back down in a blazing deluge. The eruption was so powerful that it unleashed almost 200 cubic meters of magma every single second. This mind-blowing display could be seen from the capital city, Reykjavik, an impressive distance of over 25 miles away. Meanwhile, chaos unfolded at Keflavik Airport, Iceland's largest, as flights were grounded indefinitely. Just a day after reopening, the famous Blue Lagoon Spa had to close its doors, once again due to the volcanic fury. Imagine being on high alert as a massive lava flow zeroes in on your community. The IMO was seriously worried about where this molten menace would strike next, and when they called in the Icelandic Coast Guard's helicopter squad, things got even more intense and terrifying. The aerial view revealed what we were all dreading: that unstoppable river of fire was hurtling straight for Grindavik, with its sights also locked on the Svartsengi power plant just a few miles down the road. If it made landfall, thousands would be plunged into darkness, with no telling when their lights might come back on. The eruption's impact reached far beyond its starting point. People living nearly 20 miles away began to detect eerie smoke and ash wafting through their air. Panic spread as fears rose that toxic gases could soon reach Reykjavik within a day. The whole country was in crisis mode. Daily life came to a grinding halt, leaving everyone helpless but to watch the ground crack near Hagafell release its fury. Another looming threat: would this eruption be followed by more? Volcanic activity is an awe-inspiring force shaping our planet's landscape over time. Imagine an explosion repeating itself over and over. That's exactly what happened in Iceland, but this wasn't just one big blast. It was a series of intense events forming a pattern. If the same sequence kept happening, it could lead to some serious consequences, making the whole area uninhabitable. But here's where things took an unexpected turn on December 21st. The situation started shifting towards hope. The IMO gave us some amazing news: the eruption site was finally stopping its fresh lava flow. And in Grindavik, people who had been evacuated were seeing this as a sign that it was time to start thinking about returning home. The residents of Grindavik had been evacuated, but as the eruption's fate hung in the balance, they started making their way back home. A move that didn't sit well with officials who urged them to wait. Meanwhile, some brave souls decided to spend Christmas and New Year's in their own houses, surrounded by an eerie glow of molten lava creeping closer. The authorities responded on January 2nd by setting up reinforced barriers around Grindavik to ensure its safety. Just as it seemed like disaster was dodged, a fragile sense of relief swept over the town. Maybe this lava field would slowly lose its heat and spare them after all. The barriers were being reinforced to hold off the impending danger, giving residents hope that everything could return to normal soon. But in a cruel twist, the IMO's warnings proved eerily accurate. While people were working hard to fortify their defenses, GPS data started acting up, flashing warning signs of another, potentially catastrophic eruption. Just like before the devastating Hagafell disaster, Grindavik just got a temporary reprieve. According to the IMO, any seismic activity we see now isn't likely to result in an eruption that's right on our doorstep, at least not anytime soon. Magma has days to rise before it even hits the surface, and sometimes these predictions can go up in flames when nature throws us a curveball. Have you got thoughts? Share your take in the comments below. Hit that like button and let's get this video trending. Don't miss out on fresh content, so click the subscribe button now and join our awesome community of learners.